afternoon, everyone. This is Susan Denee, and you are listening to the Know You're Crazy talk show, where we are talking about emotional elevation in the raw. What is emotional elevation in the raw? It is simply the removal of the filters which have held so many of us from truly expressing how we really feel about living this life day to day. Whether it be finances, romances, professional, or even our health, we all have a little bit of crazy to dive in and get to know. As a certified high-performance coach to corporations and individuals, as well as a woman helping women recover from alcoholism and addiction for nearly 20 years, I not only will bring you my insight and experience, but that of experts and everyday individuals like yourself who have figured something out about this emotional elevation. Please join me one episode at a time as we find solutions together for our crazy. Remember, this journey of life is meant to be enjoyed, and you deserve that because you are worth it. Hello, everyone. This is Susan Denee, and you are joining me on the Know You're Crazy talk show, where we are talking about emotional recovery in the raw. I am grateful to be here with you today. You might be asking yourself, what is emotional recovery in the raw? Simply put, I like to try to remove the filters that so many of us put in place that block us from truly expressing how we really feel about living life day to day. I'm interested in getting to the root of any blockage we may have in living a truly joyful life. Not that every day can be extreme joy, but I believe that the majority of them can if we get to the root. How do we do that? We do that by being honest with ourselves and how we feel and what's really going on the inside. As a certified high-performance coach and mentor to women for nearly 20 years in the recovery from addiction and alcoholism, I am bringing to you my experience, my insight over the years, helping those people. Corporate situations, leadership, subordinates, women in recovery, all of it, child rearing, that will come up. You know, once one lesson gets learned in one area of our life, we get to apply it to another. I will talk about health. I will talk about finances, romances, and all of that brings me to this episode 3 of the Know You're Crazy talk show. All right, what am I talking about today? Expectations. I'm going to be drilling in on expectations and how key they are to determining how we feel about ourselves and where we're at in life and what we're doing that makes us feel good or not so good. The inspiration for this particular session that we're going to be going over today came from a woman that I have had the pleasure of working with for nearly, I think she reminded me today, it was 7 years. And as we started our session today, I normally don't record those sessions, but I asked her because she's so authentically vulnerable with her emotions and her life dilemmas. She's really fun to work with because, like I said in a prior episode, the more material you give somebody who's there to help you, a coach, a therapist, a mentor, the better off you are because they get to work with so much and they can provide such a new perspective, especially if they've been doing this thing for a while. So this morning, we're getting ready to dive in, and I had given her an exercise last week, and she was reporting her results of that exercise. And right before, I knew what I was going to say when she first gave me one of her initial findings. And I said, hey, can I record this? Because we're going to have some good stuff. I might have used a different word when I described that. All right. So this is me being accountable to you, my timer. Make sure I fit us within our breaks. It's a goal of mine because I get to going. So I thought, how can I deliver this message today? How can I deliver a great message like I had with her this morning? Because she gave me so much great material to work with. And this is something that I talk about often. And I was going into those 4 areas with you. So let's talk about that. The 4 areas. We've got finances. We've got relationships. What else do we have? We have our health. And last but not least, professional. So what do we know about these 4 areas of our life? What do you know about those 4 areas in your life? I bet that when you are feeling less than your highest self, and what is the highest self? Feeling great about who I am. On those days when you're in the dumps, maybe that's a lot, maybe it's not, depending on where you're starting off at. One of these areas is tipping you over. I like to share that, when we go into a growth spurt, when we really, truly dedicate some energy and some time to grow, one of these areas has instigated that. One of these areas, we've gone to extremes, extreme miserable, maybe, but one of these we're working on. So for example, for several years, in the very beginning, I talk a lot about sometimes with addiction and recovery, because that's my background. That would have been health, because I couldn't put down the drink or the drug, which literally bled into my relationships, the quality of those relationships, the finances being out of control. And all of that's going to lead to how good did I feel about showing up professionally for anybody at that point. But this was the main one. The main one was health. I had this thing that needed to go away, and it was physically withholding me. So all my focus would go into this one area. You may be in a time in your life where one of these are heightened, where most of your energy is going. Today, when I was working with her area for a long time was this area, relationships. Some of you may be single. Some of you may be looking for that certain someone. Some of you may be in a relationship that's not going so well, and you're in a constant state of fight or flight. And it's a daily consuming thing. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's consuming you. Could be in relationships. Maybe the big monkey on your back is finances. Perhaps you found yourself in a lot of debt. You're spending uncontrollably. You don't know how to get off Amazon Prime. Click, click. Whatever it is, maybe you can't afford things. Maybe you're having a hard time putting food on the table for your family. Maybe it's to that dire extreme. That could be one thing. Maybe it's professional. Maybe you've been in the same industry for a long time and it's time to make a change, but you don't know how to get out. But every day you go into work, you're miserable. Every day you're not living your true self. And so it constantly chips away at you. The more you go, the more you find fault with other people. Whatever. But one of these 4 areas are tipping the scale. So when we started working together, and like I said, I've been working with her for a while. So this last round of I like it when I work with a client for a while, because it continues to challenge me to come up with some fresh content or a fresh direction for them that I haven't taken yet. When she came into me, and this is the homework for you guys, if you're up for it, here's the homework. In each of these areas, I want you to take score, okay? We're going to do a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is I feel fantastic in this area about me. How do you feel about you in this area? And let me explain why that is so important to talk about the feeling. You may have millions of dollars in the bank, but when it comes to financial management and just looking at finances overall, you may not feel good about you. That may seem absurd. Some of you who don't have millions in the bank would be like, well, how can somebody who's got millions in the bank feel bad about them when it comes to finances? Because maybe they believe they're supposed to have 10 billion in the bank. I don't know. So it doesn't really matter where, you may have a relationship that you've been in for 10 plus years, and on the surface, it seems really pleasing and fantastic. But when you think about you and how you feel about you in that relationship, you may come up shortchanged. You may feel less than because you realize you haven't bought them a gift in a while. You realize that when they come home from work, you're not appreciative of the time that they've taken to put food on the table, right? Relationships with your children. Although everything seems hunky-dory on the inside, something's talking to you that you're not spending enough time with them. So when you look at the category, you feel less than about you, even if the surface appears that it might be okay. Health, same thing. Professional, same thing. So what I want you to do is I want you to get this scale out. And 10 is I feel fantastic about myself in this area. 1, I'm just going to say it like it is. I feel horrible about myself in this area. Some folks get scared of really looking at the horrible. Let's not exaggerate the negative. Let's not go there. We're going to go there. What I say, emotional recovery in the raw, we're going to go there. If you don't go there with yourself, if you don't honor the crazy when it's at this level, you're going to be stuck there for a lot longer. So just honor it. Honor it if that's what you're at. And if this is you in one of these areas, celebrate it. Celebrate it. And then we've got this whole gray area in here. Okay. Likely, if you're still hanging around for this discussion and you're still tuned into this, you're asking yourself, or you're saying to yourself, likely, here's what I think. I think if you're still tuned in, you've got some growth and you know it in one of these areas. So we're going to go to break. And during this break, I want you to it's probably going to be gone. I don't even know how long we're gone. A few minutes, maybe 30 seconds. Take this score. Finances, how do you feel about you? Score it. Relationships, how do you feel about you? Score it. Health, how do you feel about you? Score it. Professional, how do you feel about you? Score it. Be as honest as you can with yourself. Take off the filters. That's what this is about, is taking off the filters. Nobody's going to see that but you. Okay, nobody's going to see that answer but you. Don't be afraid to look at it. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you what to do with that score, how this all deals with expectations, and I'm going to throw in a little education around shame. All right, if you want to get in touch with me other than videos and watching this stuff, SusanDenee.com, high performance coach, helping people for a long time. You can check me out on Facebook. You can also check me out at Instagram _Denee. I've got a lot of content on there. It gives you an idea of my perspective and how I look at life. And if you feel that can be of service to you, don't hesitate to reach out. All right, be back soon. Hi, folks. This is Susan Denee. Welcome back to the Know You're Crazy Talk Show, where we are talking about emotional recovery in the raw. And by raw, I just mean we are getting to the root of the problem. We're going to embrace our crazy, find out where it's serving us and where it's not serving us. Today's episode, really excited about it. I'm always excited when the content that I'm going to be delivered is inspired by work with somebody. This particular woman that I was talking with just this morning over something that something I've been coaching her with over the last several weeks in relation to beliefs. We were talking about expectations and scoring oneself regarding how she feels, how you feel about yourself in certain areas. So last segment, before we went to break, you guys are going to get used to me doing this, setting my timer so I keep myself honest, making sure I know how to run the timer. All right. Before last break, what we went to is we talked about expectations. Didn't go into expectations. I'm going to go into that this segment, but I was elaborating on 4 key areas: finances, relationships, health, and professional. And ultimately, the message is, if you're just now joining us, if you're feeling pretty low, if you're at a phase in your life or a season in your life where you just can't quite name the heaviness and you're having a heck of a time pulling up out of it, usually what I have found with myself and with clients, things like that, it's one of these key areas have done tip the scale. So you feel ultimately pretty bad about you in one of these areas, and it's one area is leading the pack. And what happens is when one area leads the pack as far as how we feel about ourselves, it slowly but surely bleeds into the other areas. And then we find ourselves that we're pretty miserable, and we might call this depression. We might call this anxiety. Not taken away from those diagnoses. They are real for a lot of folks. I've also found that when we get to the root of the problem and really understand how we're feeling about ourselves in these areas, those type of emotions start to elevate. And if you've listened to me for a little bit, I'm all about emotional elevation, which is bringing us to this exercise today. All right. I said before we go to break, I wanted you to do something. I wanted you to take score of how you feel about you in each of these areas. Not on the surface, how does it appear to be working for you? How do you feel about you in these areas? The example I used, I'm going to change the example. I'm going to go to health. Let's say you are a workout addict. You love to work out. You do pretty good with your food. People see you and they compliment that. But yet, when you scored it, you're scoring somewhere in like a 5. I mean, all the outside appearance, all the feedback you're getting is that you're doing fantastic in this area. You even do things in this area, stay consistently dedicated to maybe exercise and diet. However, for some reason, when you scored it, you still feel like a 5. You see where I'm going with this? It doesn't always matter what the outside appearances look like. It really comes down to how do you feel about you on the inside in these areas? So if you honestly took account of that last scoring question that I asked you before we went to break, you now kind of have taken a mini inventory on where you are standing, feeling, let me use the word feeling, where you are feeling in these areas about yourself. So now we've got a score. What do we do with it? What do we do with a score? Okay. Oh, I'm trying to think. Oh, I have a crappy eraser. All right, so here, we're going to get through it though. Maybe no, I don't know. Okay. Note to self. Figure that out. You can still see. All right. We score a 5. No, let's just say we're on the low end of the poll and we score a 2 on something. Let's say we score a 2 on, we're going to go with health. And if you scored a 2 on something else, just filter it out. You know where I'm going with this probably. If I score a 2 on health, then that ultimately means that either I'm taking action, but I'm still telling myself it's not enough, or I'm not taking action, right? And here we go. And I'm really not doing enough. So ultimately, here's what's happening, is I'm telling myself on a regular basis, I should be here, but I continue to do nothing. Nothing might be a strong word. Maybe you're not doing, maybe you're doing only part of what you're supposed to be doing in your opinion, and so now you're hung up a little bit. So I'm scoring low on a category. Ultimately, if I'm scoring low on a category, there's something that I think I should be doing, but I'm continuing to not do it. What does that represent? What does that represent? Let's talk about integrity. Let's talk about integrity. Simply, are we doing what we say we're going to do? These scores that you took, and I said, nobody else sees these scores but you. So it's all between you, yourself, and depending on how you believe in life, the universe, God, whatever your beliefs might be, if they fall into that category. But ultimately, it's going to be you, right? Even the universe can't help you if you can't meet the universe halfway. So ultimately, it's all about you and how you feel about you. The thing with integrity is when I am out of integrity. When I am out of integrity, what does that mean? I'm in shame. When I am out of integrity, I am in shame. Let's talk about shame. How does shame feel? I've been in the personal growth mode for at least 20 years. I got sober in 2001. And in early days of sobriety, there's a whole lot of growing going on. There's a whole lot of personal inventory being taken. That is, if you're willing to look, right? I mean, we stay sober if we continue to look. It's a great motivator, sobriety. But integrity is going to come down to, am I doing what I need to? Am I doing what I say I'm going to do? And when I'm not doing that, I feel myself full of shame. And so the shame is that, for me, I'm going to describe me and see if this resonates with you. It's that ick feeling, it's guilt, it's I'm not doing enough fast enough, I can't get to enough. It might be a feeling of overwhelmed. I've made such a to-do list for myself that it's almost impossible to get to. And I'm beating myself up over that. It's a feeling of less than. It's that thing, right? It's that thing that I am not enough. I am not enough. How do we get out of shame in one of these key areas? How do we get out of shame? Have you ever heard you want to accept, feel good where you're at in order for more to come? Well, how do you do that if you're stuck in shame for a long time? Maybe one of these areas you've been stuck in for years. I was in one professionally, not kidding you, 7 years. It took 7 years to pull out of it. Little by little that happened. And I'm going to talk how that happened and how I got there so it doesn't take you 7 years. But integrity, and when we're out of integrity with our word, with ourselves, we are in shame. We are in shame. And this is only, let me remind you, this is when you're scoring low. This is when you're scoring low, because that shame feeling is definitely present if you just voted yourself low in one of these areas. And low, I would probably say you're going to be doing 5 or less. Maybe even 4 and below would be a low score, to where you're definitely feeling some of this. Okay. When we come back for the next segment, we're going to go from shame to reevaluating expectations. And I have another exercise for you. So now that you've got your score, I want you to just take a moment on break and just reflect. And I want you to kind of identify the feeling that you've had in these areas that you've scored yourself low on. And also reflect on the feeling that you have on the areas that you scored high in, because that feeling is what you're after, right? The feeling is the goal. So let's not talk about the goal being the millions in the bank and the perfect health routine. Let's talk about the feeling that you experience when you like you in one of these key areas. All right, so my name is Susan Denee. You can visit me on my website at susandenee.com, Facebook, Susan Denee, or at Susan_Denee on Instagram. Denee is spelled Denee. I look forward to coming back to you here shortly. Welcome back, everyone. This is Susan Denee, and you are watching the Know You're Crazy talk show, where we are talking about emotional recovery in the raw. Simply, we are getting to the root of the problem with no filters, hopefully emotionally elevating as a result of that. Today, we're talking about expectations and shame. If you are just now joining us, we've had a little bit of a scoring test in a good way about 4 key areas in our life: finances, romance, professional, and health. Asking the audience or whoever's watching to score themselves on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I feel fantastic, 1 being I feel like horrible, and to be as honest as you can with yourself about those areas. And that was a scoring opportunity about how you feel about you in those areas. Not necessarily what does the outside picture look like in those areas. How do you feel about you in those areas? The point I made, for example, in relationships, let's say that you're married, you've been married a long time. For the most part, the relationship's extremely healthy. But for some reason, you scored yourself around a 6 instead of a 10 because you haven't been feeling good about you. Maybe you're not appreciating them when they walk in the door. Maybe you haven't bought them a gift lately to show your love. Maybe you've postponed time together because you've been busy with work. And how you feel about you doesn't feel good, even if the outside appearances and the foundation that you built over the years has held for a long time. In the inside, you're just not as positive about it because you know you could be doing better in that area for your partner. That's an example of how do you feel about you, not what do the outside appearances tell me about how good of a job I've done in this area over the years, for example. Maintaining our peace and happiness, or maintaining, and we talked about this last segment, our integrity within an area simply means that we do what we say we're going to do, not to somebody else, but to us. We are the ones that need to be in alignment with our own integrity. We are the ones holding our own standards of ourselves in those 4 key areas. Almost lost my marker. That's the clue. So when you're feeling on the less end of that scale in one of those areas of life, you are ultimately holding yourself hostage to standards that are no longer serving you day to day. You may have a goal of how you'd like it to look. However, holding that goal or moving towards that goal isn't working so well for you. So you're scoring low end of the scale. So you're in below the 4s versus sitting happy in the 10s. Our areas of life, they need an upgrade sometimes. They need a little tune-up like our cars would. I don't even know if cars need tune-up anymore, do they? I mean, really, with technology? Maybe. No, oil needs changed, maybe. Still, well, some cars. Anyway, we need a tune-up. We need to continue to tune up in these areas. Sometimes we fall back and we rest a little bit, which is okay if we've got that strong foundation. But if we rest for too long in these areas, pretty soon, here comes that little voice. We're not doing enough. We're not good enough. And it'll creep up on us. How many of you have taken care of your health in a particular time in your life for a period of time? And you look back and you think about how good you felt during that time. And maybe you were exercising regularly, you were eating good. And now you're back to the, Lucky Charms at night. And you're trying to figure out where'd that go? Where'd that go? Part of understanding our crazy, and this is the crux of what's the content that's in my upcoming book. And this is actually the crux of what I like to teach. When you spot check the crazy, you get it in the early phases so that you're not back to eating a whole bowl of Lucky Charms, right? Like you catch it before the tune-up is like in the shop for 4 days, right? You catch it when the oil first needs changed versus after the engine's blown up. I hope all those analogies are working. Okay, so anyway, so how do we do that? Well, let's get to that core problem of the ick feeling, what I'm calling shame. You can name it whatever you want to name it. Shame works for me. Okay, let's get to the bottom of that core feeling of shame. What have we found ourselves in, and why have we been doing that? Okay, here we go. Expectations. Let's say, and I'm going to give you just examples in one area of life. Let's say we're going to go to health, because health is just such a great one to use. So many of us will go, fluctuate all over the place in health. So let's say health. And let's say expectations. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Okay, well, in my columns. Okay, health. I know what I'll do. Goal. Okay, let's take somebody who wants to lose some weight. And let's take somebody who wants to lose 15 pounds. Okay. Goal is to lose 15 pounds. So health category, when they scored themselves, they were sitting at a 3 or a 4. That's how they feel about themselves right now on a day-to-day basis in regards to their health. They are telling themselves this recently that their goal is to lose 15 pounds. They kind of self-start some things, right? But they have an expectation as far as how that should look. So maybe the expectation is I eat a salad 2 times a day, no bread, no pasta. Okay, we're going on a low carb one. All right. Maybe no dairy. Okay. Oh, let's tack one more on there. Let's go no gluten. Okay. We're going to make this good. So here we are. We're sitting at home. We're feeling like a loser. We want to lose 15 pounds, and we know how we're supposed to do this because we've done it this way in the past. In the past, we've gone all out. We've gone gluten-free, dairy-free, took out the carbs. We ate salads. We had some vegetables. I mean, we were on a roll. We know how to lose 15 pounds. But for some reason, just can't quite get there. So Monday, we get up in the morning and we eat 1 salad. We also eat bread. We didn't do we have some dairy and, we did this far, right? So we got this far. So we didn't do everything that we set our expectations to do. We have an expectation of ourselves, and our expectation is we're going to go without dairy, we're going to go without gluten, we're going to do these things. But we didn't do what we said we were going to do. Guess what? Lack of integrity. So now the goal feels almost a little bit further out. Okay. The lack of integrity is now sprinkled with, a little bit of ick, a little bit of shame. So what could we do differently to avoid this pitfall? What could we do differently to avoid this pitfall? The point I'm making is how you feel about you in those categories is directly related to how high your expectations are of yourself. What that means is I can't achieve a goal of 15 pounds overnight. If I'm constantly staring at the goal of 15 pounds and then my little daily, what I think I'm capable of falls short, this starts being a club over the head. This isn't even fun anymore, right? And yes, losing weight can be fun. It's not even fun anymore. Now it's become a headache. And now I'm feeling so mad at myself because I colored outside the lines, right? I didn't follow my plan, that I have a little bit of guilt. I have a little bit of shame. Now, let's say I'm on, this was day 1 of the diet, the new lifestyle. Say day 2 rolls around. Maybe you do fantastic. Maybe you have all those salads. So you boomerang back. 15 pounds is looking okay, but then day 3 comes back. And so the expectations are really hard for you to hold. The standard that you've set for yourself is a little bit too high. So what's wrong with lowering that expectation a little bit so that you can achieve some sense of success? So that at the end of the day, this is gone, and you're feeling pretty good about you. How about that? How about we talk about that feeling again of accomplishment and of proud of us? If you're saying to yourself, well, if I lower my expectations so low, how am I ever going to lose the weight? It's not about losing the weight. It's about you feeling joyful about you on a day-to-day basis. And in order to feel joyful about ourselves and proud of who we are, we've got to have a sense of accomplishment in an area of our life. If I'm in an area of my life that is suffering because I feel so horrible about me, because I have these expectations, and I'm come to a point in my life, if I'm in that state where I just no longer am able to give myself any grace, I have set the bar so high that I fail to hit it almost daily. And then in the midst of that, I feel a lot of shame. So what do? You lower your expectations. Lower your expectations. You don't give up on the goal. You just make sure that you have some wins. You make sure that you set the expectations so that you have some wins, and be realistic with yourself, right? I mean, if you've got an addiction to Lucky Charms, you might want to start honoring that and just back off one bowl a week, maybe in the beginning. You might have to be able to achieve small goals and allow yourself to build up to higher expectations. I mean, that whole honoring our crazy is we really have to be brutally honest with what are we capable of? Because emotionally and mentally, if we've been in a habitual way of living, and we've got, shame involved. And so we've got this constant feeling of down on ourselves, that heaviness that doesn't change overnight. But it will change when you're able to give yourself some reasonable goals that you can attain on a daily basis. Stay out of the comparison game. Stay out of the folks who seem to think that they've got it all down and they're flashing it everywhere. And we're keto for a whole life. And if that's not, don't compare yourself. We've got to stay out of the comparison trap in order to achieve. Remember, this is between you and you. Other people who got it going on because they may have already achieved that category of peace, right? They may have already gone there. That's for them to have that experience. You are here for you to lower a little bit so you can start achieving some success on these little ones. Okay, I got to go to break. We're going to come back because there's one more thing you can do that's going to help you in this process other than just lowering the expectations a little bit. And I'm going to bring that back to you. So stay tuned. I will be back. Hey there, welcome back, everybody. This is Susan Denee, and you are listening to the Know You're Crazy talk show, where we are talking about emotional recovery in the raw. Simply, we are just getting to the root of what makes us not as happy as we could be on a regular basis. Today's episode, we are talking about expectations, integrity, shame, and a little bit of goals. And how do we reverse things with our expectations so that we can feel good about who we are more often than not? I've been sharing that in 4 areas of our life, we often will find these needed growth spurts where we kind of have to reel ourselves back in to get back on track. It's our relationships, our professional life, our health, and our finances. Those are like the top 4 areas I have found working with others over the years, that usually there's something going on in one of those areas where they have felt so poorly about themselves, either in how they feel bad about themselves, and that feeling of bad might be related to low productivity, maybe low performance, perhaps a weight gain that they weren't expecting, a relationship that ended up going south that they didn't want to go south, those type of things. And so now that they don't feel good about them, like those could be extreme examples, or they're still in those circumstances. And from the outside picture, everything looks like it's going well. If anybody was to come in and take, an outsider was to come in and assess their situation, they might see it and say, hey, you're actually doing really good about this. But the person themselves cannot see it, and it's not even about seeing it, it's about feeling it. What I mentioned in the last segment was it's not how much money you have in the bank. It's not how many pounds you lose. It's how you feel about you in the process of getting to those goals. One of the taglines I adopted several years ago, it's about enjoying the journey because you are worth it. Enjoying the journey because you are worth it. We get off base. we steer in another direction. We stop enjoying the journey. We start seeing only what we're not achieving versus everything that we are. That brings me into the final segment, where I said when I wrapped up last segment, I said, I'm going to add one more thing to the list to help you realign with your highest self. And this must be, I'm going to remember to put this thing up here. I like to lose it. Okay. Expectations. We talked about expectations. And the first expectations. The first thing with expectations was when they're too high for us in relation to, usually, okay, remember, it's in one of those areas. You might have an expectation that has been set too high. And so when you go to improve your life in that area, you consistently fall short of feeling good about you. I used the health example last segment because, how often we'll go on a diet, we want to lose some weight. We've got this expectation as far as how we're going to do that. And then we start to fall short of that and we start to feel bad about ourselves. Well, the reason I use the health example is because what if we just lowered the expectation as far as of our standards of ourself in that area? That might be scary to you. You might think, oh my God, I'm going to lower my expectations. I mean, how much lower could they be? They're not low enough. The reason they're not low enough is because if you're feeling like a failure or you're feeling like it's not enough fast enough, it's because you're having you're not feeling enough accomplishment in that area. You're not feeling enough accomplishment. And so you gotta make the goals attainable on a day-to-day basis. The overall far out goal stays the same. It's the journey of the goal where the expectations have to be lowered. So expectations. So number one for you, take inventory of your expectations in the area of concern for you. Okay, first instruction. You want something to do, you want some action items, you're wondering, how can I wrap my arms around this? There's some free coaching for you. Take inventory of your expectations in the area of concern for you. If you're failing in the health area, then simply sit down with yourself and say, what are my expectations? Why do I feel like a failure? What am I trying to do every day that I'm consistently not achieving? What is it? Just look at it. Don't stare at it and beat yourself up over it. But you got to take notice, where are my expectations? Where do I need to realign? And that's the next thing. Once you take inventory of the expectations that are not working for you, reset the expectations. Reset your expectations. Set new ones. Set attainable expectations that you're going to be able to feel good about. Okay? So the example I used earlier, if you got yourself down for 3 salads a day, but you can consistently only eat 1, set the expectation to 1, maybe tack on a vegetable, I don't know, but reset the expectation so that at the end of the day, when you look over your list, you can see your accomplishments and feel the sense of worthiness, the sense of accomplishment, the sense of good. You feel good about what you did, okay? So number 3, after you've reset your expectations, the third thing for this is going to be your daily homework, is to recognize your accomplishments. If you are in the pits, let's say it's bad pits. It's bad. You're hopeless. You've reached a point of hopelessness. You don't even know how, you can't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like it's dark. Maybe you're calling it grief. Maybe you're calling it depression. Maybe you're calling it out of control anxiety. Maybe those are true. Maybe those are true for you. Do you believe that you can do different? Do you believe with baby steps that you can come out of this? I believe you can. I've witnessed in others and myself obstacles that have been in the way that have been overcome. Have you ever heard the saying, time heals all? It's true. It's true. We are meant to only move forward. As you know, we cannot go back to yesterday. It already happened. There really is no choice but to keep moving forward. So the homework becomes, can you on a daily basis spot where you have moved forward? In the midst of maybe sadness, in the midst of maybe hopelessness, in the midst of it, do you have it within you to at least give yourself acknowledgement for what you have to move forward in during that day? Resetting the expectations is just to add to that list. Because see, I don't care what you say about yourself in any of these areas right now, you're making headway. You can't go back. You can't go backwards. You're probably just not recognizing your accomplishments enough. Or if you do, you discredit it too quickly. I ate a salad and then I went and I did that again. You immediately follow up with the shame addiction. You might be addicted to shame. You might be addicted to that feeling of less and you don't know how to get unstuck. It's going to take some effort. It'll take a daily recognition of your accomplishments. So that's what I've got today for today's episode is reevaluating the expectations. And by reevaluating the expectations, the integrity goes up because you feel good about your choices. The shame goes away. And once again, the feeling that you have about yourself in these areas begins to feel good and not icky. It feels good. If you enjoyed that, if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, if any of that resonates with you, you can reach out to me. You can check out some of the content. My website is susandenee.com. Instagram is @Susan_Denee. Denee is spelled Denee. Or just simply tune in next week. I'm going to be doing things like this every single week. And in addition, bringing on folks who have figured out some emotional elevation steps themselves to help you live a happy and joyous life so that you enjoy the journey because you're worth it. Thanks for being here. You have been listening to Know You're Crazy.
Crazy.
And my name is Susan Denee. We are identifying, understanding, and treating your crazy one episode at a time. Tune in to transformationtalkradio.com. To connect with me or Growth Spurt Your Life, please visit susandenee.com. That's Susan Denee, DENEE.com.